Now we're going to go over the controller object, which is the thing that actually tells the double robot what to do, and it uses all of these functions and all of these methods and variables to actually control it. So the robot controller has this mode variable, and we'll kind of talk about how it's used later. It stores the previous mode and just a bunch of other different parameters. And then these are mostly just internal variables for different states that it's in, and it'll use these as it needs. The next thing it stores is this robot object, which is just an instantiation of this double robot in our case. And so this thing is going to store the actual connection to the robot and talk to everything like we just went over. So yeah, this is the thing the robot controller controls. Yeah, and then we have this override action, which is used by the override GUI in the when the controller is in the override state, which happens when someone presses one of the manual override buttons. So in the init function, you can pass in a sensors connection. If there is a sensors connection, then it'll start the robot with the sensors, and it'll run that sensor processing loop inside the robot. And if not, then it won't do that, and it tries to use the robot for position measurements, which is not accurate. And then everything else is basically just setting everything to 0 to start out in the controller. And then so there's a few okay, the main function for this robot controller is the control loop function, and you pass in the frequency that the control loop is running, or it tries to maintain that frequency inside of the loop. So let's just go down to that function, and then we can go from there. So the control loop function is pretty simple. You store the start time, and most of the code in here is just to maintain that frequency of however many hertz you pass in. So just like before, it's using an operation queue, and then it's sleeping in that operation queue, and then whenever, like 16 times per second in our case, it's going to run this function. So it checks if it's like playing a video, and that's what this is. And if it's not playing a video, then it will run this control step. So the control step function is the main it's the dispatch function for our control loop. It takes the current state, and then based on the current state, it'll choose what it's going to calculate and what action it's going to send to the robot. So this is our control step function.